It's February 26th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the doctors' walkout, which is entering its second week now. Doctors' absences at hospitals over the medical school quota hike is only growing, with more junior doctors expected to join the protest, and medical school graduates are now refusing to take internships. The president's office slammed a collective move, stressing no other country in the world has seen doctors put their patients at risk in this way. Around 31,000 Ukrainian troops have died in the fight against Russian forces in the past 2 years, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says. The number in the first release of such figures is far lower than estimates by Moscow and the West. According to U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, a basic outline of a ceasefire deal for Israel and Hamas has been reached. While Israeli Defense Minister warns attacks against Hezbollah will be shored up even if there's a ceasefire deal. We now enter a second week of a massive doctors' walkout over the government medical school quota hike. The healthcare standoff is only looking to snowball, with more med school graduates and fellows considering joining the strike action. Shin Se-byuk starts us off.
Now it's new medical school graduates who are set to join the nation's large-scale trainee doctor strike by refusing to take internships. Hospitals have been scrambling, relying on attending physicians and professors to step in to fill medical service gaps left by a mass exodus of trainee doctors that began last Tuesday. However, the healthcare crisis is poised to deepen, with medical school graduates turning down intern positions. According to Seoul National University Hospital, 80 to 90% of interns due to start on March 1st haven't signed their contracts. While at Busan National University Hospital in Busan, all 50 internship candidates slated to start Friday have resigned. Fellows are also contemplating joining the collective action by not renewing their contracts. Attending and fellow doctors from around 80 university hospitals nationwide issued a statement last week where they said that practicing medicine has become untenable amid vilification by the public. The staffing shortage has forced major Seoul hospitals to cut surgeries and treatments by up to half. So far, nearly 80% of the nation's 13,000 trainee doctors from 94 major hospitals have resigned. As of Monday, Samsung Medical Center reduced its surgery schedule by 45 to 50%. Seoul Asan Hospital initially scaled back surgeries by 30 to 40% during the first week of the strike, but has now decided to reduce them further to 40 to 50%. Other hospitals like St. Mary's Hospital and Seoul National University Hospital have also adjusted their surgery schedules in response to the strike. In response, the Ministry of Health and Welfare has banned the acceptance of mass resignations and any collective actions urging the maintenance of essential services. In the meantime, the Korean Medical Association has called for an immediate halt to the government's expansion plans, warning of legal action. Arguing such a move would not only compromise the quality of medical education, the KMA said the entire medical sector will fight back using every legal means available until the end. Meanwhile, the KMA is planning a massive rally in Yeouido on the 3rd of the next month, with 20,000 doctors expected to attend. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
And South Korea's top office says that there'll be no U-turn on plans to increase the medical school enrollment quota by 2,000. The president's director of policy, Sang Tae-yoon, said in a briefing Sunday that authorities consider raising the figure from the current 3,058 necessary, as it has not been raised for over 30 years. Presidential spokesperson Kim Soo-kyung also said no other country in the world has seen doctors put their patients at risk with such extreme collective action. Refuting claims that the medical community had not been consulted sufficiently, she said there have been around 130 rounds of discussions. President Yoon will highlight measures to support young people and temporary workers as he continues his tour of regions across the country to discuss policies on improving livelihoods. On Sunday, his office said Yoon will hold 7 to 8 more rounds of government briefings with members of the public with specific regional issues or industries with a wide-ranging economic impact. 14 of the briefings have taken place since January, mostly in the Seoul capital area. But they have been expanding to other cities and provinces, focusing on nurturing the semiconductor and nuclear energy sector, small and mid-sized businesses, land development, and medical reform. The office says future topics will include improving conditions for youth, temporary workers, and the use of digital platforms for public good. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Sunday that 31,000 of his country's troops had lost their lives in the 2 years of the war. Now, that shoots down Russia's estimate of 150 to 300,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Saturday marked 2 years since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began the war that's still very much ongoing. The brutal war has led to the death of many civilians, but the Ukrainian government had not released an official figure on the number of soldiers killed in action. However, on Sunday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy held a press conference in Kyiv and said that a total of 31,000 of the country's soldiers had been killed in the war. He slammed lies by Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government that some 150 to 300,000 Ukrainian soldiers died on the battlefield. Still, the Ukrainian leader said that each death is a huge loss to the country. Both Ukraine and Russia have kept the scale of their military's troop losses confidential to prevent enemies from using the death toll for propaganda purposes. So far, major foreign media outlets have only been estimating the number of military deaths by citing internal sources. The 31,000 military deaths announced by President Zelenskyy is significantly lower than the figure claimed by Russia and the amount of Ukrainian troop losses estimated by the West. UK-based newspaper The Economist last November reported that American officials estimated that 70,000 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in action, while 120,000 were injured. The New York Times reported last August that Russian military casualties had reached 300,000, while Ukrainian military casualties reached approximately 200,000. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu claimed last month that Ukraine lost 215,000 troops in just 2023 alone. During Sunday's press briefing, Zelenskyy further called for Western support and urged the U.S. Congress to pass an additional budget for Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And the U.S. over the weekend announced more than 500 new sanctions against Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, as well as the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Now, how effective will they be this time? We turn to Professor Kim Hyun-wook this morning. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. This latest package brings the number of entities sanctioned to over 4,000. The question is, will the first round of sanctions be a blow to Russia in realistic ways?
Well, I think we have to see how the effects of sanctions would be, because the last time when sanctions were raised, it was not that effective. In the initial phase, the export of Russia pretty much decreased, and the supplies of commodities and services pretty much decreased. But after that, Russian economy pretty much recovered. Maybe one of the reasons is that countries like the United States and Western European countries, they were very much hesitant because sanctioning Russia might be expanded into the global and regional economy, and also sanctioning the export of Russian oil to other countries might make the entire oil prices go up, which I think would also have a negative impact on the oil price management in the United States. So I think all these factors, I think if applied the same way, I don't think it will be that effective as U.S. and Western countries expect.
Right, and when it looked like Ukraine was losing international support, G7 members once again vowed to back Ukraine for as long as it takes. Where is this support from G7 coming from? Because the war has now entered its third year. Is that why?
There was G7 summit meeting, and at the summit statement, they all agreed that they will continue their support for the Ukraine in dealing with Russia in warfare. The British Prime Minister promised that it will provide $311 million, defense packages. And also Netherlands promised that it will have a security pact with Ukraine for 10 years. But the problem is that the public opinion in Europe is pretty much devastating. European people are pretty much sick of Ukraine war. Their support rate is getting lower. And also the support for the President Biden about the war in Ukraine pretty much decreased for about 7% compared to the 47% of last August. So I think the public opinion is getting more and more negative about the war in Ukraine. I think that's some sort of the dilemma that G7 countries are facing in the near future.
Right, and I would also like to know how some analysts also point out the West and the global South are not on the same page when it comes to dealing with Russia, and that's why sanctions on Moscow end up useless. What's your take on this, Professor Kim?
Yes, because of the sanctions, many European countries decided not to import the oil from Russia. But what happened is that some countries like China, India, and Brazil, they imported oil from Russia in a discounted price, much cheaper price. And also China began expanding its trade with Russia in all the commodities. Even some, everyday commodities and also finance services, expanding its trade with Russia. So all these kind of things are making Russia to be capable of its, escaping the sanctions by international community. And another reason is that President Joe Biden was very hesitant in sanctioning Russia very much because it has a general election in November this year, and restraining the Russian oil export would definitely make international oil price go up, which also will have very bad impact on the people of the United States about the oil prices.
Definitely, definitely. Now, the U.S., it wasn't just the U.S. The EU also unveiled its 13th raft of sanctions on Friday, targeting people accused of helping Russia procure weapons, now including North Korea's defense minister. Will that help stop apparent arms shows between Pyongyang and Moscow then?
Well, I don't think so. Yeah, you mentioned that European Union's 13th round of sanctions on Russia. The targets of those sanctions include the North Korean defense minister and the head of missile agency of North Korea. The reason why the European Union's included North Korean agencies and ministers is because they think that the North Korea provision of ammunition to Russia was something very negative effect on the process of war in Ukraine. And also they found out that the ballistic missiles that Russia is using is something that has been manufactured by Russia. So that's the reasons why they put North Korea into the sanction list. But North Korea thinks that this is a very important opportunity for North Korea. I mean, beginning its cooperations with Russia and possibly expanding into China. I think this is a very important opportunity for North Korea to expand its national interests. Even though there are sanctions, I think the gains that North Korea obtained from Russia is much bigger than the losses that it gets from the sanctions on North Korea.
Right, briefly before I let you go, that's why concerns are growing that deepening weapons collaboration between the North and Russia can pose a threat here on the Korean Peninsula. How can Seoul or its security allies stop that from happening other than by, slapping sanctions then?
Well, I think now, of course, China is a little bit hesitant in joining Russia and North Korea. But I think North Korea and Russia is very much eager to form a trilateral cooperation vis-a-vis the U.S. Because that's something that can gang up to deal with Western countries and the U.S. sanctions on Russia and China and North Korea altogether. So for now, I think we have to be ready for all these kinds of things. We have to bolster the relationship with the U.S. and trilateral cooperation with Japan altogether. Kind of expanding and increasing the deterrence capabilities. Because now, also along with that, the U.S. needs to strengthen its pressure on China because China is kind of center state amongst the Russia, North Korea, and China. And maybe sanctioning and pressuring China, that will weaken the trilateral cooperations and that will also weaken, North Korea's hardline policies towards South Korea and the Korean Peninsula.
All right, Professor Kim Hyun-wook, thank you so much for your insights this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Sunday that a basic outline of a ceasefire deal for Israel and Hamas has been agreed. Speaking to CNN and NBC, Sullivan said representatives of Israel, the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are discussing hostage negotiations for a temporary ceasefire in Paris, and that they have reached an agreement on the basic outline. U.S. media Axios reported that a deal had been sent to Israel that includes a 6-week ceasefire if Hamas releases about 40 hostages. And meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said Sunday that even if there is a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, attacks against the Lebanese armed faction Hezbollah will be strengthened. Now, this comes as the militant group fired missiles and rockets and sent drones into Israel's northern border area, resulting in casualties in northern Israel. It's graduation season here in the country, which normally encourages many people to visit flower shops. But it's a different story this year, with more people turning to more affordable options to buy flowers. Our Park Kwon-woo has this story.
Only about 60%. This is what one flower shop owner said when asked how much sales had recovered during the recent graduation season compared to pre-pandemic levels. Graduation season in Korea during December through February is usually when the flower industry sales blossom. But lately, it's been wilting.
Because people haven't been buying flowers that often, even after COVID-19, the need for flowers has disappeared. If people had been continuously buying flowers, they would be interested in buying them and sometimes even making a habit out of buying flowers.
One expert offered other reasons.
There's the perception that flowers are too expensive. And along with the decrease of the school-age population, shrinking overall consumption are other reasons as well.
According to the auction price data from Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation earlier this month, the prices of many flowers used in graduation bouquets saw on-year increases. In particular, hydrangea was up by around 150%, gypsophila rose by 30%, and freesia around 10%. Experts say factors include bad weather and increased imports of low-cost flowers. So, due to higher prices, people are looking at ways to buy flowers more cheaply.
I usually go to flower markets and buy them in bulk to get them at a more reasonable price.
Some are even trading flowers through used goods smartphone apps. A graduation bouquet like this can cost as much as between $20 and $50, but they are also being traded at lower prices, sometimes reduced by more than 50% on used goods apps. Bouquets that are said to have been used only for a short time to take pictures with at graduation ceremonies are being traded using these platforms. With this having a knock-on effect on the flower industry, one expert says there are ways to see it bloom again.
The distribution stage should be reduced, prices should be lowered for consumers, and appropriate compensation should be given to farmers and for labor costs due to the change in the labor environment.
And the expert concluded the government should come up with actual measures to revive the industry, along with its 5-year promotional plan announced in 2022 to increase flour production volume by over $520 million by the year 2026. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today in the United States, where former President Donald Trump has won the South Carolina Republican presidential primary. Trump, following news of his victory on Saturday, said that he has never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now. He defeated the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, who vowed to continue her 2024 presidential campaign in her speech titled "The Fight Goes On" after her loss at South Carolina primary. Saturday's defeat is a painful blow to Haley, who was born in South Carolina and served as the state's governor from 2011 to 2017. Trump has been victorious in all 3 of the other Republican presidential primaries in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Now, the American voters wait for next week's Super Tuesday, where more than a dozen states will cast their votes in the presidential primaries. Moving over to Spain, where police confirmed Saturday that 10 people were killed in a fire that swept a 14-story apartment block in the country's eastern city of Valencia on Thursday. Some 100 survivors remain housed in a local hotel or with relatives as they seek for a more permanent solution. Hundreds of people gathered outside of Valencia City Hall on Saturday for a moment of silence to mourn the victims. Amid the tragedy came the story of a Ukrainian family who lost everything in the fire, being helped by a Russian family. According to media reports, Ukrainian Hambarov Dmitro and his family received clothes and food from a Russian family in Valencia following the blaze. In the UK, junior doctors in England began a 5-day strike on Saturday over pay disputes with the government. This is the 10th junior doctor strike since last March, when the British Medical Association asked for a 35% pay rise, but was turned down by the country's ministers. According to Health Secretary Victoria Atkins, more than 1.3 million hospital appointments and operations have already been cancelled or rescheduled since the strike began. Junior doctors in Northern Ireland are planning to take a similar protest for 2 days in March. The latest polling from YouGov showed that 50% of the UK public still support the junior doctors, while 43% were against them. In entertainment news, the 30th annual Screen Actors Guild Awards took place at the Shrine Auditorium and Expo Hall in Los Angeles on Saturday. Director Christopher Nolan's film, Oppenheimer, continued to show its dominance in this year's awards season as it won the Best Film Cast, while Cillian Murphy won Best Actor and Robert Downey Jr. Best Supporting Actor for the same film. In television categories, Steven Yeun and Ali Wong won Best Actor and Best Actress in a TV, movie or limited series for their roles in the TV series Beef. Best Actor and Actress in a comedy series went to the cast of the TV series The Bear, Jeremy Allen White and Ayo Edebiri.
Good morning. It's a freezing start to the new week in the capital, but highs will go up fast to reach above norms, topping out at 9 degrees in the afternoon. Then tomorrow looks to be similar to what we'll have today. Meanwhile, snow in mountainous regions in Gangwon-do does not seem to be coming to an end. In fact, the areas were crowded over the weekend with people wishing to catch snow-capped mountains. And more snow is in store, with mountainous regions in Gangwon-do possibly seeing up to 7 centimeters through tomorrow. The rest of the East Coast could receive up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. Highs will go up similar to slightly lower than norms in most places. Gwangju, Daegu, Busan sees highs of 11 degrees this afternoon under brighter skies than yesterday. Thursday looks to be a wet one nationwide, then spring cold is in store for the start of March. Saturday, we are looking at lows going down as low as -7 degrees here in the capital. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.